Hello friends. After many days of waiting, the US Congress officially approved an aid package worth nearly $61 billion for Ukraine. This aid is likened to a shower in the middle of a drought, because it opens up hope for Ukraine in its more than 2-year conflict with Russia. The aid package was passed when Kiev was struggling with both human and material resources on the battlefield, so the US aid bill was quickly passed by both chambers, helping Ukraine as well as its allies. Breathe a sigh of relief and feel more secure. However, the question is whether this aid package can help Kiev turn the tide in the war with Russia. When this aid package is approved, which parties will benefit? While watching the video, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel and leave your comments so we can be motivated to serve you better. Sincerely thank. This aid package was stalled for a long time due to disagreements in Congress. But this time the aid package was quickly approved by both the Senate and House of Representatives and was approved by President Joe Biden signed it into law shortly thereafter. So what is the reason for this quick decision? What are Americans planning? It can be said that in the history of the United States, more than 200 years, from 1776 until now, this is the bill that was signed the fastest from the House of Representatives to the Senate and the President. Because, usually, a bill passed by the House of Representatives must be studied and discussed to pass in the Senate, so it takes at least a month, sometimes even many months, to be passed by the Senate. Once passed by the Senate, the President still has the right to veto it. However, this aid package only takes 2 days to complete. It can be said that, first, the nature of the rapid adoption shows that this is a message of US elites that is highly unified in supporting Ukraine to defeat Russia. However, the rapid approval of the aid package does not mean that there is 100% consensus within US politics. The reason is that, after the House of Representatives passed it, there were still some Republican congressmen who criticized the U.S. House of Representatives Speaker, Mr. Mike Johnson, and some even declared that it must be brought down by all means. This man. In the Republican Party, many members also strongly and openly oppose this bill. Within the U.S., there are also officials who say that Ukraine has nothing to do with U.S. national security. The biggest thing related to U.S. security is China. So why should we invest in aid to Ukraine? Second, in November 2022, Russia failed on the battlefield and was forced to withdraw from Kherson. So the US and NATO were very happy and always hoped that Ukraine would defeat Russia on the battlefield. However, Ukraine's counteroffensive, starting in June 2023, failed. Since then, Ukraine has always failed on the battlefield. So, actually the US and NATO do not dare to say it publicly, but perhaps they no longer have hope for Ukraine to defeat Russia on the battlefield. This US aid package for Ukraine has a desire for Ukraine to not fail on the battlefield. The possibility of Ukraine defeating Russia is no longer possible. Aid so that Ukraine does not lose on the battlefield. This issue has been affirmed by the Secretary General of NATO, the President of France, and the Prime Minister of Germany. Do not let Russia win at all costs. If Russia is allowed to win, Russia will continue to attack Eastern European countries. Perhaps this is just the way Western leaders speak, whose essence and purpose is so that Ukraine does not lose. Russia's perspective. This aid package will only shed more blood on both sides, and shed more blood on the Russian and Ukrainian people. It prolongs the war but cannot change the situation on the battlefield. The Russian side has recognized that sooner or later the US will approve the aid package for Ukraine. So the Russian side already has countermeasures, have backup plans, have a plan to consolidate and strengthen military power on the battlefield. Regarding this aid package, Western countries have 2 lines of opinion. The first line of opinion is that when aid is given, it will make them feel more secure because aid will increase strength for Ukraine. The second line of opinion believes that Russia will increase its attacks on Ukraine more fiercely to maintain Russia's strength on the battlefield. In fact, regarding this aid package, the Russians are most interested in long-range missiles. As for bullets and conventional weapons, they do not care because their weapons production capacity is very large, always superior to NATO countries. Of the 61 billion in aid, 23 billion are military weapons. Among them are long-range missiles. From the US, this is what the Russians are most concerned about, because when it is in Zelensky's hands, it is very unpredictable. When the United States itself provides long-range weapons to Ukraine, it does not want Ukraine to use them to attack the Kremlin or attack economic and defense security facilities deep within Russian territory, because doing so would escalate the war. If not careful, it would lead to Russia using nuclear weapons. It must be affirmed that receiving this aid package, with new and more modern weapons, will certainly strengthen Ukraine's defense capabilities, causing Russia to encounter more difficulties on the battlefield. But it is difficult for Ukraine to turn the tables. The US and Western countries want to maintain the war in a state of tension. Both sides win and lose. Attrition to weaken Russia. From now until November 2024, US presidential election, it is very difficult to have a breakthrough on the battlefield. If there is a breakthrough and victory favors Ukraine, it will provoke Russia to use nuclear weapons. Aid to Ukraine helps Ukraine maintain defense against Russian attacks. If Ukraine loses, current President Joe Biden will certainly fail in the presidential election in November 2024. According to observers, the aid package comes to Ukraine in the context that Moscow is gathering momentum both on land and in the air, threatening a large-scale attack this summer, capable of breaking the defense. Ukrainian army lines and attacked major cities. This includes Kharkiv, the closest major city to the Russian border, and possibly Kiev, forcing President Volodymyr Zelensky's government to leave the capital. Director of the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency, William Burns, former ambassador to Russia, said that unless a new round of U.S. aid is about to be deployed, Ukraine is at risk of losing the war this year. Therefore, the $61 billion aid package plays a rescue role for Kiev at this time. On the other hand, both the US and European defense establishments have been preparing for this moment for the past months. Nearly 90% of financial resources for Ukraine will be spent on purchases from US defense industrial facilities. Warehouses in Europe, run by US European Command and NATO partners in Germany, Poland and other locations in Eastern Europe, are already filled with weapons, especially artillery shells, that could quickly transfer to Ukraine. At the top of the list will be the addition of Ukraine's air defense forces. This means that Ukraine will be equipped with more surface-to-air missiles, from small systems such as the National Advanced Surface-to-Air System, NASAMS, and the MIM-23 Hawk system, to large Patriot batteries and even including Terminal High Altitude Defense Systems, THAAD. These systems not only protect civilians and critical infrastructure such as power grids, but are also effective against Russian aircraft. Ukraine is also likely to use this aid to put about 45 F-16 fighter jets that the West once committed into operation. The war in Ukraine has also become the first protracted conflict in which drones play a major role. These drones rely on sophisticated command and control, largely connected to satellites. This may be less flashy than the ballistic missiles flying over Crimea and the warplanes of Russian forces, but just as important. The US aid package could allow Ukraine to deploy a stronger attack drone force with commensurate cybersecurity capabilities. To date, the US has been the largest aid donor to Ukraine since Russia launched its special military campaign in February 2022. The US contribution, especially the $61 billion aid package, could play a symbolic role in European support for Kiev. In the context of Ukraine's war lasting into its third year, War fatigue means that new aid rounds are no different from a decisive move. The aid move is meant to demonstrate its leading position, and from their allies in Europe also have more motivation to continue betting on Ukraine's ability to win. During the bipartisan negotiations in the U.S. to pass the aid package for Ukraine, Mr. Donald Trump's role was mentioned. Most observers believe that Mr. Trump will continue to support Republicans in their efforts to block the Ukraine aid package. About half of Republican members in the U.S. House of Representatives have said they will oppose more support for Kiev, and House Speaker Mike Johnson cannot break this deadlock. But as Mr. Johnson moved to pass the bill last week, Mr. Trump refused to abandon the effort.
MR 도널드 트럼프 even praised the Speaker of the House of Representatives ASA, good man, after passing the Ukraine aid bill. This move is somewhat surprising given the move to oppose the previous plan.
The former president's nod to the Ukraine aid package was considered to have a great influence on the Republican Party accepting a compromise with the Democrats to pass this foreign assistance bill. Looking back at the context, this week Mr. Trump appeared in court regarding criminal charges of silencing a porn star, a development that could greatly hinder his ability to be re-elected at the election. Elect U.S. President next November. On the other hand, polls also show that as he increasingly speaks out against U.S. support for Ukraine, the support of Republican voters is also decreasing. Russia's RIA Novosti news agency mentioned two benefits that Mr. Trump can take advantage of when supporting the U.S. Congress to pass an aid package. The first is to help him eliminate disagreements with Republicans who supporting Kiev, and more importantly, with the sponsors of the party's election campaign in the form of the defense industry. America, which will receive at least 3/4 of the money allocated to buy weapons for Ukraine. In addition, the basic aid package meets Mr. Trump's requirements regarding the allocation of funds to protect the border with Mexico, along with provisions on the confiscation of frozen assets of Russia. Also only allocated funding to Kiev in the form of a loan. The above issue, combined with some strategic outreach by Republican senators and a small but politically significant change to the aid package, helped convince Mr. changed views on aid to Ukraine. According to observers, this change is likely the result of a continuous lobbying process, where all parties behave as if Mr. Trump will be the owner of the White House. It should be noted that the U.S. aid package escaped the deadlock after a series of meetings between Mr. Trump and foreign officials, such as Mr. Trump's meeting with British Foreign Secretary David Cameron on April 8 in Palm Beach, or Polish President Andrzej Duda at Trump Tower to discuss issues that help strengthen European security. This shows us that, with the adoption of this aid package, we will, first, it is beneficial for Ukraine to defend and attack Russia. Second, if Ukraine loses, current President Biden will certainly lose the November 2024 election. Third, former President Trump agreeing to pass this aid package also contributed to increasing his support in the election, because every time he opposed the aid package, his support rate decreased. Fourth, American weapons manufacturing companies will receive orders from the U.S. government. Thank you for watching the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel and leave your comments so we can be motivated to serve better. Sincerely thank.